I see the arch as a manifestation of the forward-thinking vision of those who came before us. I see it as a magnificent icon that is the symbol of our city, one recognized around the world, a symbol of our strength, of our civic pride, a symbol of our commitment to ourselves and to our future. I also see the arch as a giant magnet that pulls this region together and challenges us to greatness.
When I think of the arch, my very first thought is Busch Stadium, being at a home game in St. Louis and looking up over center field and knowing that that great landmark that represents St. Louis is always going to be out there. It's a tremendous view from the ballpark, and you realize the importance it means to St. Louis. I think it's one of the first things people recognize when they come visit this great city, and I'm glad we're looking to find ways to improve it.
The St. Louis Arch, it's one of the only things I knew about St. Louis when I heard the team was moving to St. Louis. I knew they had the arch thingy there, and it was one of the coolest experiences ever. You know, first time flying into Missouri, into St. Louis, and you got to see it from the sky. And then you can't wait to see it. And when you get up close, you can't believe how big the darn thing is. So it's really cool. I don't know exactly why it was built or what it's for, but it's so iconic. I love seeing it in movies. It's everywhere, and you can't miss it. And when you're on road trips and you're coming back home to St. Louis, and when you finally see that little arch break the horizon, you know you're almost there.
Hi, my name is Tina Harrison. And what the arch means to me, well, my family's from St. Louis. My mom and dad went to Kirkwood. The Lewis and Clark expedition, my mom told me way back in the 60s when I was growing up that we had a relative on it, but to not mention it because he was like the water boy or something. So one day, my husband and I had gone down into the Museum of Western Expansion, and on the back wall, there's a plaque that's dedicated to my relative that he shot a bear and saved one of the Lewis and Clark members. I don't remember which one it was. Unfortunately, my mom had already passed, so I couldn't share that information to tell her he was more than just a water boy. Did you know that there was 33 people on that expedition? And yeah, my relative was just a private, but I'm very proud of my relative and our history here with St. Louis. I love my hometown. Thanks.
Something you got to see when you're in St. Louis. You just have to go see it.
It was on the bucket list.
On my bucket list.
We're going to see this before we can't travel anymore. We got to see the arch before we leave here. I saw it 4 years ago, but I want to see it again.
It's like our signature, like what is Missouri known for? Our arch.
The history of the arch is just fabulous. It's exciting.
For me, it's engineering.
It's humongous. It's gorgeous.
It is. It's very beautiful. It's an amazing piece of art. And the designer, awesome.
Seems to me like to incorporate a little bit more of the riverfront would be the real neat thing for us to see.
If there was no traffic going across right here and you had to walk across the road, it would be fantastic.
Little congested getting across to see the courthouse here would be nice.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We are so glad you're with us here this evening for the 4th annual CityArchRiver 2015 report to the community. My name is Claire Kellett. I am an anchor for KMOV News 4 this morning. If you're an early riser, perhaps you catch my co-anchor, Andre Hepkins, and I from 4:30 to 7. I am honored to be your MC for tonight's event. More importantly, I'm also proud to say I am a St. Louis native, born and raised in Webster Groves. As someone who, like many of you, grew up under the shadow of the arch, I am incredibly excited to be a part of tonight's events, where we will share with you how the transformation of the arch grounds is unfolding. I think a lot of you could say we have certainly come a long way in the last year in realizing the CityArchRiver 2015 project vision. Most notably, construction officially began this past August with a groundbreaking ceremony that attracted state and federal dignitaries, including U.S. Secretary of the Interior Sally Jewell and Secretary of Transportation Anthony Fox. Also in November, we celebrated another groundbreaking on the riverfront, and there will be more groundbreakings certainly to come. No doubt this is an historic project, one that is enhancing the Arch experience and the experience downtown on the riverfront for everyone, for those of us who live in St. Louis and for those of us who often welcome guests to St. Louis. The Arch is a global icon and a symbol of the spirit of discovery and the exploration inside all of us. But for St. Louisans, the St. Louis Arch means a little bit more. It's a part of our identity, an anchor of our past, and a gateway to our future. The Arch, I would guess, has a personal meaning for many of you here tonight, including me. And when I was first asked to be a part of tonight's presentation, immediately my brain started going, wow, I have so many stories growing up with my brother and sister, Saturday adventures we would take downtown St. Louis. And I thought, wouldn't that be funny to do a slideshow of all of our family pictures? But being the youngest in my family, I realized that since St. Louis is a small, big city, word would get back to my siblings and they would team up on me. So no pictures, but a story that I wanted to share with you. And this story actually involves my adult life. I went to the University of Missouri, then I worked in Iowa for 5 years. And in 2010, I was finally able to get back to St. Louis, back to my family, and got a job, gratefully, at News 4. And if you're not familiar with somebody who works an overnight shift, the hours are pretty crazy. And my life involves getting on 44 eastbound at 2 in the morning. And the first time that I happened to be doing that, of course, I was anxious and nervous. It was my first day on the job, and how was I going to do these hours, and who are my coworkers, and how is this all going to work out? And then I'm sure many of you will take my word for the fact that when you're driving in the middle of the night into downtown and you see the Arch, it's pretty amazing. It's incredible any time of day, but for somebody who is from St. Louis and is grateful to be back home with family and friends and working in this incredible city, I remember I got goosebumps, I got chills, and to this day, I get that same feeling at 2 in the morning, driving on 44 into downtown St. Louis. And on mornings like this, it's actually about 12:30 or 1 in the morning, thank you to Mother Nature and that thing we call storm mode. So for me, each and every day, I'm greeted by the Arch and lucky enough to work right next to it. It's a very encouraging and calming start to my day. My story, no doubt, is just one of many. When you think of the Arch, you maybe think of childhood field trips at school or a skyline bright with fireworks after a Cardinals victory, one of many Cardinals victories. You might think of a long family road trip back home. You see the Arch and you think, we finally made it back home. I've shared my Arch story tonight, and you will also have the opportunity to record your memories of our monument. This is really cool. In the lobby after our presentations as part of the My Arch Story project. Many of you have seen in the lobby this evening. You'll have the opportunity to do that later on. Before we introduce our first speaker, we thought it would be helpful to basically give you a timeline, an outline of all of our presentations tonight, just to give you an idea who you will be hearing from. In a few minutes, you will hear from Maggie Hales, Executive Director of the CityArchRiver 2015 Foundation. She will talk in more detail about what the project partners have accomplished over the last year and what we can look forward to in the near future. Maggie will be followed by Greg Horn, the Missouri Department of Transportation District Engineer for the St. Louis region, who will speak to the Interstate 70 corridor improvements and the construction on Memorial Drive that is instrumental in providing easier access to the park for everyone. Next up, we have Susan Troutman, Executive Director of Great Rivers Greenway District, who will provide an update about the new riverfront currently under construction and the trails taking shape that will connect the Gateway Arch grounds to the region's river ring. She'll also talk about public involvement in the CityArchRiver project. Next in line, we have Mike Reynolds, Midwest Regional Director of the National Park Service, who will talk about the importance of this project and the public-private partnerships to the Park Service. And last but certainly not least, we will hear from Michael Van Valkenburgh, lead designer of the CityArchRiver project, who will give us a sense for what the Arch experience will feel like, what it will be like when everything is complete. So quite a lineup here tonight. We will start, as I mentioned, by hearing from Maggie Hales, Executive Director of CityArchRiver 2015 Foundation. Since 2012, Maggie has used her leadership experience, abilities, and her passion for St. Louis to help bring CityArchRiver 2015 to fruition. Maggie, along with the foundation board and staff, helped coordinate the efforts of the many public and private agencies involved in bringing this project to life. The foundation is also raising the private funding to support the project. An attorney by training, immediately before joining the CityArchRiver 2015 Foundation, Maggie served as Deputy Executive Director for East-West Gateway Council of Governments, the St. Louis region's federally designated metropolitan planning organization. A native St. Louisan, Maggie brings a very unique passion and dedication to enhancing St. Louis and revitalizing and reconnecting the Arch, the riverfront, and the region. It is my honor to introduce to you Maggie Hales.
Thank you, Claire. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming out on such a snowy and cold night. Before I get started, I do want to acknowledge the elected officials who are here tonight. I think Mayor Francis Slay is here. Thank you for being here, and Alderman Phyllis Young. So thank you. We do appreciate your support and your being here tonight to evidence that support. We couldn't do this project without you. So tonight, we're going to hear a lot about partnerships. I'll talk about our partnerships, what we've been doing, what we plan to do in the future. And of course, you'll be hearing from our core partners tonight, in addition to me. I'll talk, and others will talk about progress we've made during 2013 and what you can expect to see for the remainder of 2014. And while a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is very physical, it's the infrastructure, because after all, we are building quite a big project, a big expensive project. There's a lot that goes on that you don't see behind the scenes in meetings, because with our project partners, we are planning not only how to build this project, but we're planning how to care for this finished park after it's finished. And it's going to take all of us working together to make that happen. So I'll talk a little bit about that planning behind the scenes that you don't see. I also want to take a minute to thank the St. Louis community, voters, residents who are putting up with all this construction, and the philanthropic community in St. Louis, which is so very, very strong. We deeply appreciate your support, and some of you are rolling up your sleeves and helping us and giving us advice, and we appreciate that as well. So about our partners, this is really critical. From the beginning, this project has been strong because of these partnerships. CityArchRiver 2015 Foundation sits at the center. You know, we have the same name as the project, but really these 5 public entities with whom we work are as critical or more critical because they're actually implementing the project. National Park Service has provided a very powerful team of folks, many of whom are actually here tonight from Denver, who have the professional background and experience in overseeing design and managing construction. So since May of 2012, actually about the same time I came on, They have been providing us with daily advice about how to get this done in the federal process, and we very much appreciate that help. Many of you know Great Rivers Greenway District, and you'll hear more from Susan and MoDOT, of course, another critical partner. We're all racing to keep up with MoDOT, who's out way in front, and we're so happy for that progress. City of St. Louis, my gosh, we've got the City Streets Department, the Parks Department, Urban Planning, the St. Louis Development Corporation, the Port Authority that oversees operations on the river. We could not do this project without their expertise, guidance, and advice, and they don't miss a meeting, and we very much appreciate that, and they're a lot of fun to work with, in spite of what you've heard. Bi-State Development Agency, of course, so important, operating the trams for over 40 years, and operating also the riverboats. And the riverboats are still open, by the way, during construction. You'll hear more about that. So we're pleased to have Bi-State Development Agency also working with us. So here's a picture from the original design competition, and this is just the Missouri side, but this is an overall view of what we're looking at. And tonight, areas 1 and 2 are the projects that are under construction, and more detail will come from Greg Horn and Susan about both of those projects. Susan will also talk a bit about areas 3 and 5, which is massive pieces of the landscape on the arch grounds, and those are next out of the box. We expect those to go out to bid in March and April, respectively, and all of the components we expect to have under construction in 2014. You can watch this construction if you're so inclined. We have webcams mounted. This one is on the Poplar Street Bridge, looking at the Riverfront development. Another one is mounted on the Gateway Tower, our office that looks down on the Walnut Street Bridge, and you can also see the old cathedral construction that's going on from that. These are very easy to find. Go to our website and the homepage. We'll direct you to these webcams. It's real time. It's really kind of fun to watch. So here is the view of the city from the new museum lobby, and this is the view you will see in the summer of 2016, according to our current schedule. And I do want to clarify something that you may have read or heard about today in the press, and that is that actually most of the visitor experience is going to be finished in the summer, not in the end, not in December of 2016. The renovations that are going to be taking place post the opening of the new museum lobby are going to be relatively minor and barely noticed by the visitors. So we'll have a lot to celebrate when this museum does open. Exhibits. Now last year, we had the exhibit designer here to talk to you, and this is progressing very, very well. They're nearly finished. We're purchasing new artifacts, selecting music, and that's coming along, and we're real excited about that going out too. We're making films, creating new exhibits, organizing exhibits that exist that are being kept, and that is well underway now as well. Turning for a moment to the North Gateway area, this is the area where the current parking garage is located, and I wanted to show you under our current design how this area, I think next to the park over the highway, this is one of the most exciting things happening on the arch grounds because it's such a dramatic change. This is going to become, it's going to go from being a concrete garage to almost 7 acres of new park space. And the circles indicate separate, discrete areas that could be programmed. You could have different events going on. We can accommodate between 1,800 and 2,200 people in this space. And we see it potentially in the future as being an area similar to Millennium Park in Chicago, where lots of fun programming and amenities and festivals can be going on. So Keener Plaza, we would like to rename Old Courthouse Plaza. That's not a done deal yet, but we do think naming it Old Courthouse Plaza gives it the honorific that it really deserves because it's right there in front of Old Courthouse Plaza. It orients you where you're located. And over the last year, we've been working hard on looking at the neighboring projects and the neighboring developments to make sure that what we do in our final design of Keener Plaza complements all of those and doesn't duplicate it. So with our partnerships, with these neighboring developments, there are so many connections, not only downtown, but really throughout the region. And these connections and this kind of complementary work is so very important in successful urban development and urban redevelopment. Because what we want to do is not cannibalize our neighbors. We want to complement them. We want 1 + 1 = 3. So we want our investment to foster those investments and vice versa, frankly. And so there's a lot going on downtown, and I've noted just a few of those. And in addition, outside of downtown, there are wonderful things going on that we intend to link to other civic institutions, et cetera. So Ballpark Village, it's going to open this summer, and we hope many of those visitors, and millions are expected to visit Ballpark Village, will come to the Arch, and vice versa. The tourists coming from out of town should visit Ballpark Village. 700 Market is going to be occupied again. How exciting is that? This beautiful Philip Johnson building. Laclede Gas recently announced that they're moving in, and that should happen early next year. And this site is diagonally across from Keener Plaza on the one side and from City Garden. Wow, look at that. So City Garden, Philip Johnson, Peabody Plaza, Old Courthouse Plaza. Now that Gateway Mall is really coming into its full potential with all of these projects working together. MX District, movies, restaurants, apartments, and the Blues Museum is going to open this year. And that's going to be another exciting addition, and we expect those visitors to come visit the Arch and visit the Riverfront as well. I also want to mention Cahokia Mounds. And the reason for this is I think that not a lot of folks know about Cahokia Mounds. It's a 12-minute drive from downtown, and it is the most significant archaeological resource north of Mexico in the Western Hemisphere, and so clearly links with so many of the stories that are told in the museum underneath the arch. So parking. We have solutions for parking. So many people are worried about losing that parking garage, but in fact, this has been the impetus to help parking operators come together with the City of St. Louis Treasurer's Office, with the St. Louis Convention and Visitor Commission, and with other partners to work together to modernize parking, making it easier for people who live in St. Louis, making it easier for people who visit from out of town. And so over the last year, parking operators have worked on a memorandum of understanding. We have 4 signatories to that. And these stars just reflect a variety, not all, not exclusively, but a variety of parking options for visitors after the project is complete. And I love this slide because the dark red that extends from 7th Street on the left to the new museum entrance on the right is the footprint of the Galleria shopping mall. So you're walking from Macy's to the end of the mall to go from lots of parking options to the new museum entrance. So about the future, that is really critically important, and more of my time and time of members of our board of directors is turning toward the future. We're going to get this built. We're going to get it built on time. But what's going to happen afterward? We want to make sure that this park is treated as one unified visitor experience from Old Courthouse Plaza, the western edge of 7th Street, all the way to the riverfront. And that can't be done by one entity. We want visitors who come here to see this as one entire place. We want to make sure that we have the right kinds of programming. We have amenities to care for people and give them food and drink. We want to make sure that we have enough funding to care for it in the way that we all want to. We want to make sure we can operate it and maintain it. And so all of the partners that I showed you on that initial slide have been meeting to talk about the future. CityArchRiver will become a conservancy, but we need to be part of a bigger alliance of all of these partners, and we hope to include other partners. JNPA is an important part of National Park Service, Convention and Visitor Commission, of course, Downtown Partnership. In Illinois, the Metro East Park and Recreation District. And if I haven't named you and you're part of an organization and you have wisdom or you have funding or you have ideas that you want to share, call me and we'll get you involved, because this is a project that's going to benefit the entire region, support our economic health for years and years to come. So this slide shows you some of our advertising that we're doing on social media to encourage people to share their personal stories, because this finished park belongs to the visitor. And so we want you, if you are a visitor there, to tell us your personal connection. And so, in fact, I was persuaded to talk about one of my experiences of the Arch, and I wasn't as brave as Claire. I don't think I should delve into sibling relationships. I come from a family of 6. So instead, I'm going to choose something more recent. When I think about the Arch, I really think about quiet. I think about peacefulness. I think about beauty. My office, I'm lucky enough to be right next to the Arch. I'm probably about 2 football fields away, but it looks very, very close. And I've been in the same building for about 10 years. And I actually think that snow is the best time to view the Arch. And about 6 years ago, in mid-December, we came to work, and it was snowy, it was foggy, the Arch was obscured, and it was absolutely breathtaking and beautiful. And the geese were flying out over the American bottom and sailing back around and through the Arch, and the fog was thick, and then the fog started to lift. And my friend Janice took this picture, and she took many, many others. And this week I persuaded her to pull it out for me so I could share it with you. But this monumental steel structure really is an organic part of nature and the landscape. And that's one of the things I love about it so much. And I do think winter is the best time to look at it. That's all I have, so look forward to talking to you perhaps more after the presentation.
With a picture like that, I'm starting to like winter again, because I don't know about all of you, but I'm on the verge of a winter weather breakdown with all of this snow and really cold temperatures. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for getting us started on an incredible note tonight. Some of you may have noticed some changes to the traffic flow in downtown. Our next speaker will walk us through the roadway changes underway and how it fits into the CityArchRiver 2015 vision and improve overall traffic flows into and out of downtown St. Louis. Greg Horn was recently named the Missouri Department of Transportation District Engineer for the St. Louis region. As district engineer, he leads partnerships and collaborations among private and public entities to improve transportation in our area. Before becoming district engineer, Greg was the project director for the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge, which I hope you have heard. We're celebrating a big milestone this Sunday when it opens to traffic, a big weekend for our city. Tonight, Greg will lead us through how MoDOT is helping connect the Arch grounds to the city. Please welcome Greg Horn to the stage.
Thank you, Claire. So, as Claire mentioned, I was the Mississippi River Bridge Director before I was the district engineer. So I was that for the last 5 years. One of the things that we did on the Mississippi River Bridge project is we gave public tours, okay? And this is something we've never done before. The last Friday of every month, we give a public tour, and that was one of the things I was so excited about because, you know, the people that came to the public tour were very interested in the Mississippi River Bridge. One day I was looking at the list of attendees, and I saw Ken Kolkmeyer, and I was like, this couldn't be. Is it really? Sure enough, it was. When he showed up, he was the project manager for the construction of the St. Louis Arch. I mean, this guy, this was amazing to me. You know, I mean, I grew up with the Arch. I grew up in St. Louis, and it was an icon. And I had the opportunity to walk with him and talk to him for half an hour as we walked over to the bridge. That was amazing. And it was funny because we shared stories, and it's how similar the challenges were 50 years ago in building a big project. But he also mentioned that the things that made it work were teamwork. And it made me think, that's exactly what's happening right now with the CityArchRiver project. I mean, the cooperation, the coordination, the partnerships between the City of St. Louis, the CityArchRiver Foundation, the National Park Service, Great Rivers Greenway, Metro, MoDOT and Federal Highway is just unbelievable. You have to understand that each of these agencies has their own direction, they have their own thing, but to put it all together and to build this thing is just phenomenal. And, you know, 50 years ago, that's what happened when we built the arch, and here it is 50 years later, and it's going to happen again as we build this project. So, where are we on the construction project? Well, we are on schedule. We started in August. We have great designers, Crawford Murphy Tilley and EFK Moen. They did a lot of practical design, and we kept the cost relatively good. The bids, we had very competitive bids when we went out to bid. We had actually programmed at $31 million, and the bids came in at 26.4. KCI Construction was the winner, the low bid. And you know, I've known KCI for 30 years, and we're very fortunate to have such a great contractor doing this Park Over the Highway project. They have a very aggressive schedule, and they're hitting it hard, as a lot of you can tell. The major work will be complete by the end of this year, and then we'll have some minor work on the city streets next year. So, you know, the big part of this project is the Park Over the Highway, or what people used to call the LID, and that provides unimpeded pedestrian access from the courthouse to the arch. But the project does much more than that. It improves access from the interstate and the city to the Eads Bridge. It improves access from the interstate and the city to the Martin Luther King Bridge. It adds actually a third exit and entrance lane in the interstate down in what we used to call the depressed lanes. And it removes Memorial Drive in front of the arch and in front of Luther Eli Smith Square. And that property, where that used to be, goes back to Parkland. And of course, Broadway and 4th Street become major north-south streets. So the first part of the project was the Walnut Bridge. That was phase 1. We are replacing the Walnut Bridge with a bridge twice as big as it was when we took it down. Now remember, it used to be one way, and it used to go to the old cathedral. When we have this open, it'll be a two-way bridge. We're working very closely with the city and in Ballpark Village, because it all ties into everything that's happening down there. We will have this bridge open by March 18th. So Maggie mentioned the webcams, and here's the webcam on the building that you can see the construction of the Walnut Bridge right now. That was on January 17th. We actually closed the whole highway that weekend, the Martin Luther King weekend, and we tore down the bridge and had the whole thing open by the end of the weekend. That project, we had traffic moved to the outer roads, the Memorial Drive, and it really had very little traffic impact. Now, in general, whenever you close an interstate, that's usually a big thing, but we got the word out, and I think traffic handled it very well. So, notice at the bottom right of this screen, you have the Interstate 44 shield. That is not a mistake, because this weekend, when we open the new Mississippi River Bridge, that will be I-70. So you can't have two I-70s, so this is going to be redesignated as I-44 down in front of the arch. You can see the big green square in the center. That is the Park Over the Highway. And right on either side of that, you can see that we are going to be removing the Market Street and the Chestnut over the interstate. And pretty close to the 44 placard, there's the Pine Bridge. That gets replaced, or that actually stays in there. It's converted to a pedestrian and bike bridge only. So, this is the Park Over the Highway. This is just like an engineer's dream. We actually get to build a 300-foot wide bridge that goes over an interstate. We put 10 foot of fill on top of it and plant 30-foot trees. I mean, that doesn't happen very often, so that's pretty cool. When you're walking from the old courthouse down here, you won't even have a clue you're walking over the interstate. We have some improvements to the city streets, too. We are adding bump outs. We're putting new signals in all these streets downtown, and we're making them completely ADA accessible. They will be pedestrian friendly, and they will still be able to efficiently handle traffic. So much of the work is underway right now. MoDOT is working with the city to make sure that we coordinate to keep the detours, manageable. And I know it's going to be a little bit of a headache, but so far it hasn't been too bad. As you can see, the project entails a lot more than just the Park Over the Highway. It includes upgrades to Walnut, Market, Chestnut, Pine, 4th Street, and Broadway. So there's a lot of work going on down here. And this will be a view from Chestnut. As you walk towards the arch, you can see that this will make the visitor's trip much more enjoyable and much safer than crossing Memorial Drive and walking on the bridges over the interstates as you do today. This will truly connect the city to the St. Louis Arch grounds. So as you move a little bit farther north, you can see that we're making some changes to the access to Washington Avenue and the Eads Bridge. So from the interstate, heading north in what we used to call the depressed lanes, you will be able to take the new off-ramp from the interstate to Washington Avenue, and you can do that today. You'll be able to use that Texas turnaround that's out there today. You'll still have access to the Arch parking garage before it's gone, so it'll be there for a while. You'll be able to go up to the light and take a left on Washington and a right on Eads Bridge, and you'll also be able to go straight on 3rd Street. So when this project is all done, we're going to really clean up all those signals issues down there that we have today that exist. So as you head a little bit farther on 3rd Street, you will be able to take a right to Laclede's Landing or the Martin Luther King Bridge. You'll be able to continue and enter the interstate heading north, or you'll be able to continue straight, and you'll be able to get off on 3rd Street, or stay on 3rd Street and go to the casino. Now, if you're heading from the airport, heading south on the interstate, okay, coming from the airport, you can take the Martin Luther King exit as you do today. And there will be some changes because you'll be able to take a right at the bottom. You can see the green kind of at the top of the slide. That'll be a right that goes onto Convention Plaza. And you'll be able to take a left onto 3rd Street. And you can still get to the Martin Luther King Bridge and, of course, Laclede's Landing. So 3rd Street is under the interstate, is under construction right now. The cobblestones were all saved and the roads were removed. The plan will be to allow better access and more open space in front of the restaurants on the Laclede's Landing that face the Edward Jones Dome. So we call this the punch-through pavement. It's in place right now, and work is beginning on the light lanterns that will better designate walking areas and provide a much more visual appearance in this area. So another part of the CityArchRiver project includes a ramp from southbound I-70 to the newly completed Tucker Boulevard. This is the ramp that's kind of on the right-hand side of your screen. The bridges over the interstates are the new ramp from the Mississippi River Bridge, which will be open this weekend. The new I-70 ramp was built as part of the CAR project, but we built it during the Mississippi River Bridge project because we were out there working. So we actually did it as a change order in that project. And it's open today. Then, of course, there's the Stan Musial Memorial Bridge. By the way, did I mention that it is opening this weekend? You all are invited to a party on the bridge at noon on Saturday if it doesn't snow anymore. So hopefully we'll get there. But without this project, many of these changes on the CityArchRiver project could not happen. I mean, the new river bridge, the Tucker Boulevard, the park over the highway, and pretty soon, coming up in the next few months, the Poplar Street Bridge improvements all work in concert to completely change the look, the feel, and how traffic moves in the region. This will be the biggest changes that we've ever seen in our lifetime as far as traffic is concerned. These are the kind of projects that rebuild our aging infrastructure. They create jobs that help grow our economy. They provide a safe transportation network, and they provide transportation choices. So the bad news is that this is the last of these great projects. These projects were all funded when our funding for transportation in Missouri was about $1.3 billion a year for the last few years. It's dropped down to about $700 million, and it's going down to about $300 million. So at that rate, we won't even be able to maintain our system. But as we move forward, the people of Missouri are going to have to figure out how to fund transportation. Hopefully, they'll do that before we have to start closing roads. This is a great project for the region, and hopefully we can build more of these in the future. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Next, we will hear from Susan Troutman, Executive Director of Great Rivers Greenway District, about the new riverfront taking shape right in front of the arch. She will also talk to us tonight about public involvement in the CityArchRiver project. For those of you who are not familiar with Susan, her local roots run rather deep. For more than 30 years, she has worked to improve the quality of life for St. Louisans by bettering parks throughout our region, most notably serving as Director of Parks and Recreation for the cities of Des Peres and Clayton. In 2010, she began her current position at Great Rivers Greenway, where she was really instrumental in advancing the organization's vision for the River Ring. This is really neat, the River Ring, a 600-mile web of greenways, parkways, and trails that connect St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. This past November, Great Rivers Greenway and project partners broke ground on a key connection point for the River Ring, the central riverfront component of CityArchRiver 2015. I dare all of you to say all of that 10 times fast. I'd like to turn it over to Susan Troutman to tell us more.
Good evening. As I stepped on the stage tonight, I thought, wow, we have come a long way. But I also thought, wow, there's people in the audience. I was really worried we wouldn't have anybody. So thank you for coming out and braving the cold. So I was thinking, where were we last April? And I pulled up this slide that I used at the time. And we had just gotten all of the funding we needed for the Central Riverfront project, and we were finishing construction documents. We had just passed Proposition P, so we were ensuring the funding for the rest of the Arch Ground projects. And we had just chosen our Citizen Advisory Committee, which is helping us now. So I'd like to start there this evening, and I know we've got members of the Citizen Advisory Committee here, so if you just raise your hand, please. Lots of you, awesome. Thank you for being out. Thank you for helping us. So this group has worked very long and hard. A lot of committee meetings. They studied the riverfront. They've studied every aspect of the Arch grounds. They've tested our theories on parking and wayfinding. They've told us that they have to have places to eat and drink, and they want to be able to relax and enjoy the Arch grounds. And they have reminded us of the importance of this project. So we're very, very grateful for all that they've contributed. They represent 8 different counties, ages 25 to 75, all walks of life, diverse cultures, people who have been here all their lives, and people who have been here less than 5 years. But they've really made a big contribution, and their ideas from each meeting we take back to the designers, to our partners, and they've really had an impact on what we're doing today. So we're very appreciative. Equally important, and I know there's members of them here tonight too, is the Universal Design Group. So I know David was out there, but who else is here from the Universal Design Group? There's a couple of you. There we go. Thank you very much for helping us. Another group that's spending a lot of hours of donated time to help better the project. This group looks at every detail and every aspect of the project to ensure that when we're finished, we have one seamless, universally accessible experience for anybody, regardless of age or regardless of ability. So we want to thank them as well. But I'd like to give you the opportunity to hear from them yourself.
As a member of the Urban League Young Professionals, I heard about the project through them, and researching it more and looking at what it involved and what it was going to bring to the city, I really just knew it would be an awesome opportunity.
When I first heard about the project, I heard that they did want to have the universal design, making it available to everyone. I was very interested in being a part of that.
Most of my career, I've always worked downtown in St. Louis. So, I drive by the Arch every day, and I just thought it would be a really exciting thing for someone from Illinois, I live in St. Clair County, to be represented on the advisory board.
I am a full-time graduate student and an adjunct instructor over at St. Louis University, working on my PhD in United States history. And this was a project that was really, I felt really right up my alley, and I could get excited about.
My favorite part of being in the committee is being able to see people who share the same passion for the city that I do, but also knowing that those people come from completely different walks of life.
My favorite part of being involved is, watching and listening everyone's input as we go along. The fact that we all are willing to work together and we brainstorm and try to find solutions so that it's going to work out for everyone. I really like that. My favorite part about the project itself is the fact that they want to keep the park, maybe expand it a little bit. And I'm really interested in watching the overpass that's going to go over the highway.
My favorite part is transforming the arch from, a static piece of art that people just come to look at to more of an engaging, participatory activity.
I think the part I'm looking most forward to is the museum renovations. The exhibit designers have such an incredible vision.
I feel so proud of St. Louis and the fact that everyone was willing to work together so that everyone can enjoy everything that's available.
We have a lot to offer here in St. Louis already, but just that additional part right there in front of the Gateway Arch, that's our big symbol and that's what we're known for. So it's nice that that's going to be spruced up and really something to brag about.
I'm looking forward to the public's reaction, the public getting to come there. For me personally, especially, I guess a particular interest in a subgroup of that, visitors who might be blind or visually impaired. Hopefully they'll be very pleased with it.
I think there are going to be kids running all over playing and adults having lunch and going to happy hour and spending time on the weekends. I think it's going to come to life and it's going to bring the city of St. Louis to life.
So on behalf of the partnership and myself, thank you to all of you who have committed your time to help us. Every time I go to a meeting, I get pumped up and I'm encouraged again. Spend a little too much time at the desk and on the phone. And so when I'm with you, I am so reminded about how important this project is and what it's going to mean for our region. So let's take a look at the Central Riverfront. The Riverfront was a big part of the design competition and the idea of connecting people to the river. So 3 years ago, we embarked on this dream of redeveloping the St. Louis Riverfront. It's been challenging. We worked closely with the City Street Department, the Port Authority, our partners at the National Park Service, the Corps of Engineers. I could go on. But what we knew was we had to protect the arch and the Eads Bridge. We couldn't impede navigation or the elevation or rise of the river. We had to make sure Lenore K. Sullivan stayed open. And for Great Rivers Greenway, we needed to make sure that we connected into this larger river ring vision. And so the Central Riverfront project is the capstone to the river ring, anchoring us at the arch grounds north to the confluence of the Missouri and south to the confluence of the Merrimack and all the watersheds in between. So, as I mentioned, working with the City Street Department, the Port Authority, the National Park Service, and by state, we embarked on a plan. And working with MVVA, our design engineer team, led by David Mason Associates, and BSI, our construction manager at the time, we came up with a project that elevated the road out of the floodplain 2.5 feet, buying us significantly more days away from flooding. We created an event space so that we would not only calm traffic, but we could have more special events and more activities and get people down to the river and closer. A wider promenade where you can walk and relax, where we can begin talking about temporary art exhibits and activities and special events, and of course, a bike trail connecting you all the way north to the North Riverfront Trail and the Chain of Rocks Bridge. One of the issues, though, was to make sure that the arch grounds and the river boats stayed open and that you had easy access. So again, working with the partners, we decided to build the project in 2 complete phases, top to bottom. So we are building from what will be the new Choteau Avenue trailhead to the Grand Staircase, and then we will build from the Grand Staircase north to the Biddle Street trailhead. All of this project will be complete, barring anything that Mighty Mississippi has in mind that I don't know about, by October 2015. We are on track and under budget. We broke ground on November the 14th, and today we've made a complete mess of the riverfront, and we're really happy about it. Just want to share that with you. We're going to talk a little bit about next steps. Maggie alluded to some of the activities that we have going on right now. When Proposition P passed, Great Rivers Greenway District became the public steward for the landscape portion of the Arch Grounds projects. So we've been working very, very closely with the National Park Service, both in Denver and here with the local park. Together, we came up with a plan that divides the park into pieces. So you used to see 12 different components. Now what you're seeing is a new comprehensive capital program that our board of directors approved this past December, as well as a budget with the first funds from Proposition P for the Arch Grounds. One of the important parts about Proposition P was that we had committed to do whatever we could to ensure local contractors were involved. In fact, on the Riverfront project, we awarded 10 contracts to all local contractors, 50% are minority. When we go to the Arch Grounds, we'll be working with the National Park Service, so the rules will be just a little bit different, and we have a meeting coming up that I'll talk about in a second. But what you see here are 10 different bid packages broken out so that it will be more competitive for local contractors. And currently, we've got 1 and 2 under construction, so the MoDOT portion and the Riverfront. Currently, project areas 3 and 5, we are working with the Park Service, Denver Service Center, and some of those folks are here with us tonight, and BSI to get this project ready to go out to bid. We call this South Park and North Park. It includes all of the processional alleys, the perimeter trail around the park, the ponds, the new east slopes that go down to the riverfront. And so we'll be bidding the South Park in mid-March, followed by North Park in mid-April. There'll be a pre-solicitation meeting on February 19th, and so that information will be going out here in the next couple of days, but if you're looking for information, you can go to our website, or you can check with our project managers, Carrie Bundy and Lonnie Boring, who are going to be outside this evening. So this will be the next big projects going out on the Arch Grounds. All of the remaining projects that you saw, that I showed earlier, will be out to bid this year and under construction this year. One of the most important pieces, though, as we go into construction, is to make sure that the visitor experience to the Arch, to the river and the river boats and the businesses down there is open and still safe and accessible for everyone. So you'll have a pedestrian access from Walnut Street, which Greg sort of alluded to in his discussion, and we will keep the North Processional Alley open another summer season so that you can go from the Arch Gown Garage to the north leg of the arch. So this is what it will look like in the summer of 14 when we're in construction, so that you know that you can get there and you can get there safely. So, my arch story. When I was asked to do this, I thought, great idea. What is my arch story? So I thought, what about the time I visited when I was a child? And the truth is, I don't remember that. And then I thought, should I confess that I'm claustrophobic and every time I get into that capsule, I'm petrified? No. Then I remembered this moment, and I have to confess that I broke all good rules of yoga practice, and I am twisted in a pretzel with 2,000 other yogis who are sending good karma to the sky, and I get out my iPhone and take a picture. This picture. Because there in that moment, I felt a peace about this project I had never felt before. And I thought about everything it took to build it, and all of the stories, and how hard it was, and I thought about the men who had climbed up the legs, and I looked up at it, and it looked down at me, and it nodded, and it said, it's gonna be just fine. And so that's my moment. Thank you all very much. If you have questions, I'll be around afterwards.
Thank you, Susan. Next, we will hear from Mike Reynolds, Midwest Regional Director for the National Park Service. Since 2011, Mike has built on the past successes of the Midwest Parks program and helped usher in a new era of progress for the region and the National Park Service. Before being named Midwest Regional Director, he served as Deputy Regional Director of the National Park Service Northeast Region and also served as Superintendent of Fire Island National Seashore, where he helped innovate park operations and community partnerships. Parks certainly run deep in the Reynolds family. Mike is, in fact, third generation of his family to work for the National Park Service and actually grew up in Yosemite National Park. As regional director, he has helped to oversee the management of national parks as well as providing assistance through a variety of community programs. I will turn it over to Mike to tell you more about what this project means to the National Park Service. Please welcome Mike to the stage.
Thank you, Claire. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm often here in St. Louis about once a month. As regional director, we have about 13 states and 60 parks. And so the reason I'm in St. Louis is this project. It is one of the most important projects, especially in the public-private partnership world for the National Park System right now. And I hope that you do feel very proud and excited by that as I do. The National Park Service, and I may say this twice, is completely committed to the CityArchRiver partnership and this project. From the local staff here at the Arch, which we call the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial, Tom Bradley is the local superintendent who is my partner. The regional office acts as the coordinating body between Washington and all of you, and Tom is the guy that, and his really, really exceptional team helps run it and is your public face. To the folks in the region that do support them, the Denver Service Center crowd, which are our engineers and architects and our creative makers that have become an embedded set of partners with you here in this project, and I'd like to thank all of them for their help on this. To our leadership in Washington, I speak very frequently with John Jarvis, our director, who sends his greetings. Our deputy director right now for operating the entire country of the park system is Peggy Odell, who is a name I hope familiar to some of you as she was formerly superintendent here. So we are very, very committed to this project and we are very excited by its progress. We've recently finished an awful lot of steps, some of them bureaucratic, for which I'm sure I owe apologies to Maggie and others for some of the headaches that a bureaucracy will give you, but they were intended only to make this project stronger and faster in the end. In August this last year, I was here with Secretary Jewell and some other folks and many of you, and I wanted to remind us all that the Secretary spoke down what will soon be the park over the highway and said this is a model for the National Park Service and communities throughout the country. And she said later to me, and I will be watching you. So I also think that's a really important connection, to be honest with you, to our leadership in this. To be honest with you, the Park Service needs partnerships like this like no other time in our history. We have a huge backlog of maintenance issues in your national parks, and we're catching up on them. But it's really going to be people that are committed to their parks, and St. Louis has stepped up and shown a huge commitment, not only as a city for what you're going to give, but you're giving a gift to the nation in this. You're giving a huge gift to this nation. CityArchRiver has everything the Park Service looks for right now as we enter our next century of service. It creates a sustainable future for this park in this conservancy ideas and in this partnership that Maggie and Susan both talked about. It makes a more accessible park. It makes it more open and relevant, both the Arch grounds but also its programming, and it really does speak to future generations. I hope that you continue to be really proud of your efforts. And while I salute the partners that have been mentioned tonight, I'm very much in salute of the people of St. Louis. And Mayor, you have a great town. I hope you, I don't come from a neighborhood. I've noticed that's what we do in St. Louis, but I hope you adopt me into your city. So the Arch to me is a symbol of pride, not just for St. Louis, but for our country. It represents the courage and discovery that built this country, and it moves it forward into the future every day. It represents America's robust commitment to exploration, to innovation, to optimism. And through this innovative design that who in the world would have ever thought they could have done that back in the 60s, the Arch grounds will now be able to reflect the grandeur of the Arch, whose traits are physically and emotionally very strong, as you've heard some people talk tonight. I was asked to do a personal reflection on the Arch, as many others have tonight, and sadly, my personal reflection I was thinking was, it's just meetings, so how do I talk about that? But it's actually not true. I brought my family this summer here, and we were passing through town, so it was personal time, and I said hi to the park staff, but it was the 4th of July. I believe you call it Fair St. Louis. And it was alive. We came into the ground. I'm usually here in the weekday, and every walk of life was out there. Everybody was eating. Everybody was in a great mood, and we were celebrating together the country. And later that night, as we were going to bed, my one daughter said, now that was America, Dad. That was America. So I think our family will forever, remember on the 4th of July, our night in St. Louis, and I think the Arch will then, therefore, always remind me of America. So thank you for letting me personally be a part of this project, along with our team. And again, thanks very much. We're going to turn it back over to Claire.
Mike, I feel like we could adopt you in one of our neighborhoods or one of our high schools, as I feel you probably have lots of those conversations when you come into town. Now it is my pleasure to introduce lead designer of the CityArchRiver 2015 project, Michael Van Valkenburgh. Unfortunately, Mother Nature had some other plans for Michael tonight. He could not get here because of the weather conditions on the East Coast. However, thank you to technology and some very fast and forward-thinking individuals, he'll be joining us by video tonight. Some of you have had the opportunity to meet Michael at CityArchRiver 2015 events in the past, but if you haven't had the chance to meet Michael in person, you perhaps may know him through his work. Michael and his firm are the creative and technical talent behind some of our country's great public spaces, including the Pennsylvania Avenue redesign in Washington, D.C., and the award-winning Brooklyn Bridge Park in New York City. Among numerous other awards and recognitions, Michael's impressive, very impressive portfolio earned him the American Society of Landscape Architects Design Medal in 2011. If you're not familiar with that award, that prestigious award, it recognizes an individual's body of work over 10 years or more. Michael Van Valkenburgh Associates won the CityArchRiver 2015 International Design Competition for the design that we see being implemented today. Tonight, Michael will talk about the Arch experience, what it will be like when the project is complete. So I will turn it over to Michael via video.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Michael Van Valkenburgh. Regrettably, I'm not with you this evening. New York is having its second blizzard in 48 hours, and all the flights out of the city today have been canceled. I am no less excited to share with you an update on the work that we've been doing on the CityArchRiver plan, and to give you as well as a bit of an overview, again, to remember the cohesive vision that we're all working on to make the Arch grounds and downtown St. Louis seamlessly connected to one another. I think it's interesting to remember that Eero Saarinen and Dan Kiley worked for so many years envisioning the masterful fusion of architecture and landscape that we're all treated to with the Arch grounds and its landscape setting. My staff and I were heartened recently to find this picture of Eero and a couple of his other staff members in their model shop. And the way that they work is in fact not so dissimilar to the way that we work in our office today. On the left, in the far distance, is James Smith, who's actually in the audience this evening, and Gulliver Shepherd, who's not in the audience and is in fact sitting here and coaching me on how to make this recording on my computer. But you can see us doing the same thing. And what is it that we're doing besides making a representation of what the landscape is going to look like, or in the case of the architects, they were making a study of what their building was going to look like. But it shows a shared worldview between their office and theirs of being very concerned of what the experience of the landscape is going to be like. As architects and landscape architects, we're trained to look at plans, but I think we're all of us, designers and not, have a much easier time of getting down and looking into a model of a landscape and really knowing what it's going to feel like. And I think feeling is maybe the operative word of the evening. We are trying to make an Arch grounds that feels more welcoming, that feels like a place where you want to stay, and especially feels like a place that you want to come back to. Probably on the right, probably the part of the landscape and Arch grounds that we're changing the most is the North Gateway. I'm sure many of you know that there's a garage there presently, and I'm going to talk later in the presentation about how we're going to shape that. But there are many things, not just the shaping of the landscape, that here in our office in Brooklyn we are studying in detail to understand how this place that we're reimagining is going to feel. There's a wall on the riverfront that's modeled on the left, and then a very big part of this project is our design of a new processional light pole, which you can see on the right in a mock-up that we did last fall. A very big part of our time in the last several months has been completing the technical drawings. These are the drawings that get passed over to contractors who will actually build the Arch grounds, and as you know, some of that construction has already started. Way back in the beginning and of the competition, that is, we very early on came up with a metaphoric reference to bridges that I want to share with you all again this evening. In our mind, there are three kinds of bridges that we are imagining as part of our re-envisioning of the Arch grounds and its connection to the surrounding city. The first of those is a vision of the bridges as being physical, which means that we're simply constructing ways that are clearer and more inviting ways to approach and to leave the Arch grounds. But we're also imagining those, as well as the edges of the city and the edges of the Arch grounds, as places that shape a new and a more positive experience. I mean, I always feel a little bad when I say that, because the Arch is incredibly magnificent. I mean, it's singularly perhaps the most awe-inspiring built moment in North America, and it really takes its place in the world setting. But I think many agree that the connections and the way that you feel at the edges are a little underwhelming. And lastly, and it's sort of the nature of how people live in cities today, we want to imagine a more active place, new kinds of things to do, and things to do as you are approaching the arch grounds that diversify the experience for people, but which also invites a broader cross-section of different kinds of people and age groups to come and see the arch over and over again. Perhaps the most dramatic of these bridges is our reimagining of the Luther Ely Square and the connection to the arch grounds itself. This is a recent picture of the existing condition, and then this is the same view as we're redesigning it. You'll have to excuse our renderers. They've taken a little liberty with the size of the trees. That's probably about 15 years after the project is completed, but the main thing to see here is in a completely reimagined entrance to the arch and to the museum. And as you go into the museum and turn around and are ready to leave, this is the view that you would have from the arch grounds, the museum entry, looking across Luther Ely Square towards the old courthouse. Another side of the arch grounds that really can be improved is the feeling, the kind of overwhelming feeling of monumentality on the side towards the river. There's a 45-foot grade separation between the bottom of the arch and the riverfront, and there is no way to get down to the river other than to go down the stairs that are there. So access is limited, and the places of access are quite difficult to navigate. And of course, there is no access for people in wheelchairs. So we're going to change that. We are creating a series of ramped pathways on both sides of the arch and reimagining the areas around where the opening for the trains are. We see that as a place with the lawns that we'll be creating as where more programming is possible, where events can be scheduled and people will be invited to sit on the lawn and enjoy looking at the river when events are not taking place. This is a festival day on the river, but it's also a view down the ramp as we've designed it. You can see it's quite gentle, and it will help everybody, those that walk well and those that don't, and people that use wheelchairs, to have a very scenic and in the summer shady place to go from the upper level of the arch grounds down to the waterfront. I always feel a little bit like this photograph is a bit of a cheap shot, except it looks every bit this bad today. We're inside the garage next to the Eads Bridge, and if you've come out of town and you've parked the car and you start to approach the arch, this is what you see today. So I think many of you know at this point in time, we're imagining that existing garage goes away and that we have created a new vision for more parkland on that side. The other significant difference being that when you leave Laclede's Landing and go through the passageways in the Eads Bridge, currently you run into the face of the garage, and what we're imagining is that there's a beautiful and very open feeling park landscape there that creates a new gateway at the north end. The look that exists today, if you park on the upper level, and then here we are at the 2nd Street portal coming through the Eads Bridge, and the feeling of the lawn and rolling landscape, but also that the landscape that we're making there is designed very much to accommodate gatherings, performance, movies, theatrical productions. There's really a lot of potential for what the Gateway can do to add a diversity of experience to coming to the arch and enjoying downtown. So the activity bridge at the north end is a place where all sorts of possibilities are now going to be accommodated. We have a place where tented events for families can occur. There's an explorer's garden. There's just a gentle lawn with lots of shade trees. There's a place for arts programming. And it's all tied together with not only the pedestrian access from Laclede's, but also a bikeway that will lead through. And biking is, of course, such a hugely popular and rising sport in St. Louis. So part of that activity bridge quality is a piece of this new landscape at the north that we're calling the Explorer's Garden. We see it as very focused on children. It's a place when you've arrived at the Arch grounds and you want to kind of get yourself organized, where as a family or as a group traveling together, you can sort of sit and look at maps and kind of take stock of how you're going to organize your day, and just enjoy the beauty of the Eads Bridge as well as the Arch itself. This is my final image for the evening, and the place where I want to end is to reflect on the aspiration that the primary organizer of the original 1947 competition, a gentleman named George Howe, wrote as part of the competition guidelines, that they imagined this place as one that would be a living memorial to celebrate life as it's lived in the future, rather than a place to remember something about the past. And so I think it's incredibly apropos that we've been charged in this project to imagine how the Arch becomes part of the daily life of downtown St. Louis, and also a spectacular visitors, whether it's their first visit or another one years in the future. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you this evening, and I will enjoy with you listening to the other presentations.
Thank you to Michael. I know that word will get back to him. Thank you to all of our speakers here tonight for their wonderful presentations and all the work that they put into that. And thank you for all of you for braving the snow, the cold weather, the not so fun situation that we are dealing with right now. As you have seen, this is an exciting year. We have a lot of changes ahead to look forward to. You heard my story about the Arch. A lot of our speakers tonight shared their story, and we'd love to hear from you as well. You remember to stop at the My Arch Story kiosk and record what the Arch means to you, and carry that conversation beyond tonight. I know they were tweeting about how you're able to take part in it. If you're having lunch with a coworker tomorrow, or tomorrow night you're having dinner with friends, make sure that they know about it so everybody can share their story. We encourage you to get involved in CityArchRiver 2015. You can find information about supporting the project at this website, www.cityarchriver.org. You can sign up for the email list and learn how you can be a part of this transformation in our city. Also want to say thank you to America Center and the Convention and Visitors Commission for hosting us tonight. If you get a chance on your way out after you do your My Arch Story, check out The Confluence, a new piece of art in the Convention Center Washington Abbey lobby entrance. It was commissioned by the Regional Business Council and generously funded by the Steinberg Family Foundation. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Safe travels on your way home, and we look forward to seeing all of you under the Arch. Have a nice evening, everyone.